Chapter 17 Learning the Art of Forgiveness. All humans were born to be ambassadors of peace, balance, harmony, and joy. No one person was born with the purpose of spreading chaos and discord throughout the world. The nature of life demands it so. Any divergence to this natural plan is unintended from humanity's original design to promote peacefulness, joy, and harmony in the world. It is also indicative of an imbalance in your subconscious that will influence you and others around you negatively. This eventuality, typically, takes place whenever someone starts having damaging or caustic beliefs or ideas about other individuals. Human nature is naturally good, nurturing, and helpful of others, but because of the mind's abilities to equally create and destroy, there are those of us who are constantly planning schemes that deviate from what we are naturally inclined to do. They blame their fellow man for accidents, loss of loved ones, sickness, pain, and suffering. As long as these nature-deviant plans are in their heads, there will be dire consequences in store for these people, their victims, and their subconscious as a whole. They are blind to the fact that their path of revenge will eventually lead to their own suffering, because they are denying their humanity and blaming others for whatever suffering they are currently facing. No human was born with a negative or destructive nature. Such traits are only instilled later in life, due to circumstances that may have swayed the individual from the natural path of goodness that humanity is destined for. The principle of life is forgiveness. Forgiveness is key in this imperfect world, where humans can and will commit mistakes that will negatively affect their fellow man. Fortunately, a limitless source of forgiveness in each and every one of us is readily available in the form of the principle of life. Unlike our conscious, sentient minds that harbor resentment for every mistake or trespass others do unto us, our body forgives our failings right away. When we fall and injure ourselves, our body does not begrudge us and make things worse for us for not paying attention. Our body merely uses pain to alert us that something is wrong with us and does everything it can to heal the wound right away, from clotting blood to scabbing wounds to minimize infection, without demanding retribution or punishment against us, or at least the conscious part of us, for getting wounded in the first place. Meanwhile, the subconscious mind remains behind the scenes, supervising the work of repairing cells and tissue regeneration. Our body does not begrudge us for our limitations or mistakes, because that in itself is an exercise in futility. Why then should we begrudge others for their lapses in judgment? As long as we act the way nature intended us to act and remove any feelings of resentment over the horrible acts done to us, surely it is a task easier said than done. We can achieve vitality, health, peace, and harmony during our lifetimes. Letting go of our sense of guilt. I know of an acquaintance by the name of Carol L., having met her once a long time ago. This young woman was obsessed with work. This workaholic would stay at her office past midnight almost daily. She felt entitled to the compliments or recognition she craved from her superiors and coworkers thanks to her outstanding efforts above and beyond the call of duty. But few, if any, seemed to notice her late-night work schedule and excessive overtime. Hardly anyone knew, much less appreciated, how much of herself she gave to her work or even how hard she had been working. So aside from overtime pay, she was never really compensated for her extra labor. As a result of her unmet expectations and her crazy work schedule, she began experiencing an imbalance in her life. For example, her family life was in peril because she had forgotten to be a good wife to her husband and mother to their children, which caused her spouse to leave and divorce her due to neglect. Meanwhile, because no good deed goes unpunished, the constant stress she put herself under caused her to develop high blood pressure. She had been working so hard, with not so much as a thank you from her employers, that she had inevitably compromised her health. When she was asked by those in the know why she had spent so much time on the job, she gave the initial reply that she was merely trying to keep up with her work. Further probing eventually uncovered the real reason why she had become a workaholic. She was punishing herself for something. Sure, she denied this seemingly baseless accusation at first, but eventually she confessed to having a deep sense of regret that pushed her to work, even though she was not required to put in excessive hours. Being a workaholic was her way of coping with her deep-seated issues. When her father passed away years ago, she was appointed as the executor of the estate. While taking advantage of her position, she intentionally hid a large sum of money that was supposed to go to her elder brother. Her intentions were pure. Her brother was, in fact, a drug addict, and she withheld the money for his sake so that he would not waste away their father's fortune on drugs. She promised herself that she would give him his share of the inheritance once he cleaned up his act and checked himself into rehab. Unfortunately, her brother committed suicide at a mere 28 years of age. Carol grieved over his death and blamed herself, particularly due to the fact that she had withheld her siblings' inheritance. If she had trusted him more, maybe he would have used the money for something positive. Had he gotten the money, he might have been able to enroll himself into a drug rehabilitation program. He could have used the money to start a new life. Because of the unchangeable past and what she perceived as bad decision-making on her part, Carol felt immensely guilty over condemning her brother for being a drug addict without giving him a chance to change. She blamed herself for not putting enough of an effort to save her brother and cure him of his problems. She was convinced that she had made a terrible mistake in not giving her brother his share of the inheritance, a mistake that eventually cost his life. She felt that she deserved all the punishment in the world for what she had done, and that she should not be forgiven for that one mistake. Carol had to learn the hard way that she was not doing anyone any favors with her self-destructive habits. She needed to understand that she did not deserve to be punished for her well-meaning gesture. Her negative attitude toward her circumstances was against what nature had intended her to be. Contrary to what she believed, she was not being a contributing member of society through her self-imposed long hours. Her spouse deserved better than a wife who was unable to forgive herself for a well-intended decision and an unchangeable past. Just as it is not in the nature of electricity to do harm, it is a known fact that it will harm you in certain circumstances. Humans, too, are subject to this fact. Electricity was meant to be harnessed as a source of energy for homes, heating, and other modern conveniences, yet it can prove to be dangerous if improperly handled and may even cause death. Despite it not being in their nature to do so, humans, at times, do harm themselves and others, even if it is unintentional. Carol's deep-seated guilt over her brother's death prevented her from living up to her full potential as an individual, and because she blamed herself, she was convinced that she did not deserve whatever happiness came her way. Her self-condemnation made her subconscious mind passive-aggressively ruin her life for her, because she felt she was guilty of a terrible sin and should be punished by karma or by herself in any possible way. The body holds no grudges when we are injured, yet our conscious mind is capable of holding grudges over things we have no control over. Carol went against her body's nature and created a mindset designed to punish her and stop her from forgiving herself. Once she realized the errors of her ways, Carol gradually learned to forgive herself for what she did, removed all regret, and started looking forward to the future. This allowed her to salvage what was left of her marriage, lower her blood pressure, balance her work and home life, and stop herself from going further down the path of self-destruction. The essence of forgiveness. The means to obtaining vitality, harmony, peace, and health is found in your willingness to forgive yourself and others. If you want to be happy and healthy, you need to learn how to forgive, because one of the most unavoidable things about human nature is the tendency to err and hurt each other. By learning to let go of guilt, of resentment, by forgiving everyone who has harmed, bullied, or hurt us in the past, we can look forward to a brighter future with a clear conscience and visions of greatness. In order to forgive ourselves, we must learn to forgive others too. Experts in the field of medicine agree that negative emotions can cause stress and other adverse effects on our health, as well as our body's immune system. Our well-being, in essence, depends on how adept we are at letting go of our destructive ideas. We must remove the memories of hurt and pain by forgiving those who sinned against us and forgiving ourselves for sinning against others, even if they themselves are not ready to forgive us quite yet. In a sense, guilt and bitterness are anchors that hold us down and keep us from surfacing from the bottom of an ocean of our own bile. How to test forgiveness. Scientists and researchers always run tests in order to make sure that their findings are true and reproducible. When it comes to determining whether or not we have forgiven someone for what they did to us in the past, we can also run a test for that. If you find your blood pressure rising whenever you see the person you need to forgive succeed in what he's doing or has done wonderful deeds for others, then that means you have not forgiven that person, and you still wish him harm or punishment for all the misdeeds he has done to you. The roots of hatred are still firmly wedged inside your subconscious. If they had been removed, you would not really care about what happens to the person you have forgiven, remembering him the same way, like any other person who has not done anything bad to you. After you have consistently achieved the state of forgiveness to the point of not being emotional about what happens to the person you hate any longer, then you have mastered this sacred art, and you are on your way to achieving your own goals and aspirations with no anchors of regret standing in your way. Try this. Many people make the mistake of harboring resentment, even against themselves. They find it hard to forgive others because they believe that they deserve retribution, and forgiving them would hinder the meeting of said retribution. They find it hard to forgive themselves in the same light, believing that penance involves them suffering for an indeterminate period of time. But what you need to remember is that the principle of the mind holds no definition of time or space. The subconscious mind has no way of determining the appropriate length of time one should hold a grudge against someone or when self-imposed penance should end. As such, if one is determined to not forgive, then they would live with such negativity their entire lives. Remember the old adage, to err is human, to forgive is divine. Within you exists a spark of the divine, a spark that affords you the infinite wisdom to forgive and fill your life with truth, love, abundance, joy. Everything that is good comes from your ability to tap into the infinite wisdom within your subconscious. Here are a few things to remember when invoking this infinite wisdom. Learn to forgive sincerely. When you have truly forgiven those who have wronged you, you would harbor no ill intent or resentment, even as you bring this person to your mind's eye. When you truly forgive someone, you are sincerely wishing for those who you are forgiving the same things you would wish for yourself: peace, harmony, good health, etc. If you feel as though you have done wrong against someone, even if they have passed on from this existence, forgive yourself. Know that forgiveness is universal and has no boundary between this life and the next. The divine exists through you and that person. Realize that his light, truth, and love flow through you. Healing, whether physical or emotional, can only happen when you apply the life principle, which consists of forgiveness. Negativity, such as criticism, hostility, and resentment, hinders the infinite healing presence. As such, open your heart and allow the healing to occur by forgiving everyone you feel who has ever wronged you.